Hi, this is James Gorvin, Tool Library here for book review. Today's book I'll be talking about today, Worst Case Scenario by T.J. Newman. This was published by Little Brown and Company in August 2024. This was a really disappointing read. While I enjoyed Newman's second novel, Drowning, which was a really good disaster thriller novel, sadly this one was not. While the premise of a airliner crashing into a nuclear power plant was an interesting idea, as it would be very devastating if that happened in real life, but I felt it was not well executed. I had so many issues and problems with this book, and one of them was there was no likable characters in this novel. I know I said in Drowning how it like Newman gets right to the action, and we're introduced to all these like characters we come to know in the story, and that was great. This one she does the opposite. She just basically throws in these kind of plain, generic, boring characters that I really don't care for. None of them have a personality. They spend most of the time fighting, arguing with each other. Nobody has any like interesting personalities or traits to them. They're just boring, generic characters, and if your characters are just kind of flat and unlikable, then why should I care about them? And as the novel progressed, they are constantly fighting more, arguing with each other, and it just doesn't get better, unfortunately. And the more I read this book, the more I was kind of finding it stressful to read, and then times I didn't want to read it because it was just how boring it was. How bored I was with it. And last night I plowed through the rest of this book just to be done with it because I was not enjoying it at all. So this was not a good novel at all. I was really disappointed as I was really hoping this would be a really good novel after reading Drowning. Um, so as I said, I had many issues or problems with this novel, and I will explain them later in my review. But overall, this was just not a good book, and I'm hoping when I go to read Falling, T.J. Newman's first novel, that one will hopefully be good. And I'm hopefully that when she comes out with her next novel, she improves her writing structure and the way she writes stories, because I feel that this is a good offer right here, but she needs to improve, and she needs to like have an opening scene. That's my one big complaint with this novel. There's no opening scene or intro. It just throws you right into it, and I really did not like that. I feel that she needs to have like a intro to build up the characters and build the suspense to make it better. That's what she needs to do, and I'll explain that later on in my review. All right, onto the review. Plot: on Easter Sunday, a Costa Airways flight 235 is flying from Minneapolis to Seattle when its captain has a sudden heart attack, causing him to lean forward on the yoke, pushing the Boeing 757 down, causing the plane to nosedive. People who aren't seatbelted are thrown out of their chairs. Food, drinks, and even luggage goes flying. A flight attendant hangs onto the cart as it speeds down the aisle of seats, with a man getting his foot crushed as she's thrown onto the floor. Another flight attendant who's inside the cockpit tries getting the captain to move, but realizes he's dead. She tries lifting his body, but it's too heavy. She grabs the radio, declaring a mayday, but it's the PA radio. People scream as the Boeing 757 dives towards a small town of Wichita. Steve Toastegg, a firefighter, is at church thinking about his wife Clara, who passed away, while Reverend Michael is saying how family isn't blood related, that everyone that knows each other is family. His morning service is interrupted when his church begins shaking, followed by a loud sound coming outside. Everyone, including Steve, stands up to look out the window and are horrified to see a plane coming straight down to the ground. It crashes, followed by a loud explosion. While people scream and run out the church, Steve gets into his truck and drives over to the crash site. The whole town of Wichita is in complete darkness. As everyone is shocked by the sudden power loss, they are then horrified to see raining pieces of aircraft crashing down, which causes several accidents on the highway, which kills and badly injures several people. It isn't long until fire trucks race towards Clover Hill nuclear power plant where the plane crashed. Inside, the plant manager, Ethan, is in darkness till red flashing lights flicker in his control room. He returns to his co-workers as they go to check the reactor, fearing they might have a nuclear meltdown. When Steve and his firefighters show up, they are disturbed by the wreckage of Flight 235 burning debris along with body parts. Steve is able to contact Ethan on the inside with a radio and asks him to check on reactor R2, fearing the water that keeps the rods cool is leaking. As Steve and his crew fight the fire and they make their way over to reactor R2, their worst fears come true. Meanwhile, Washington, D.C., President Michael Wade Johnson is in the middle of hosting a Easter event at the White House when he is told about the plane crash out in Minneapolis at the nuclear power plant. Fearing they might be dealing with a terrorist attack, President Johnson orders all flights grounded until further notice and wants updates on the situation in Minneapolis. President Johnson calls a meeting in the Situation Room and speaks with Ethan as he explains the problem they are facing, as the plane has badly damaged the nuclear power plant and has several water pipes that keep the rods cool, and the pool is draining of water. If the rods are exposed, it will cause a toxic fire that will spread and kill everything in its path. The president and his staff fear this disaster will put them on a level 8 nuclear threat. Back in the Clover Hill plant, Ethan has managed to get the power and systems to reboot, with Steve checking the rest of the plant for any survivors. Then Joss Vance from NEST, Nuclear Emergency Support Team, is sent to aid Ethan. After telling her what they're going through, the power is restored to the plant, allowing them to watch security footage of Costa Flight 235 nosedive, then crashing into the plant. They check the pool with the rods and see it's badly damaged, losing water quickly as they have 16 hours before it drains empty. At the same time, remaining fire unit is being sent to a nasty pile-up accident on the highway with a report of 17 people killed. They don't have enough manpower or first aid to help everyone. They hope they'll get more help soon. The fire team arrives on the highway and they are horrified what they see. They find the grisly remains of a family killed in their minivan when a piece of Flight 235's wing crashed in front of it, causing the front of the minivan to crush up. However, they find one survivor, a 5-year-old boy, Connor, who's badly injured, needs medical help. When they request backup, Steve tells them to report to the nuclear power plant, but before any of them can tell Steve about the boy, he orders them to report there at once. The crew is disgusted with this idea of leaving the boy behind and choose to refuse orders and rescue the boy. Matt, Steve's 11-year-old son, and the rest of the kids are being evacuated after an order is issued by President Johnson to leave the town of Wakita at once. As Matt's teacher Nicole is in the middle of getting students on the bus, suddenly a red 95 Dodge Ram truck appears with Marion running out to get his granddaughter, Brianna. Nicole protests, but Marion refuses and takes Brianna, with Nicole running after him. However, Matt also follows her. She orders Matt to return to the bus at once, but refuses. Raising her voice, Matt calls her a bitch, which Marion telling them to get in his truck. They both do, with Marion driving to the nuclear power plant, claiming they'll be safer there as the highways will be blocked with traffic. They reach the plant with Nicole not liking this idea. They find a way inside as they're exploring an empty room. To their horror, Matt wanders off to go find his father. Joss and Ethan argue over what to do while keeping President Johnson updated on their situation. Then Ethan comes up with a plan to prevent the rods from releasing toxic radiation. Since the pool has fixed steel walls, they'll weld the pool shut. That should buy them enough time to repair the rest of the damaged plant. However, Jess points out they don't have the gear, and with airspace being closed off as only emergency and military forces are allowed to enter, they don't have time to get the gear brought in. Then Kara brings up R.J. Brown, who's a Marine and worked as a welder before losing his job to the plant years ago, and now lives on a farm. And he dislikes his own government, along with having a grudge against Collar for taking his CDs and not giving them back. They speed through the empty town and reach his barn. However, he greets them with a bolt-action rifle. After some arguing and F-bombs, RJ allows them to take his gear, but wants it back and his damn CDs as well. Carla tells RJ to have his CB radio on as they might need his help later. However, he changes his mind and agrees to help them. Steve discovers his son has somehow reached the plant. It isn't happy and orders him to stay in the room and not leave unless he calls for him. When Steve is told about the plan to steal up the pool, he is against the idea of sending his men, which might get them killed. He volunteers to help RJ with the underwater welding. However, their problems are only about to get much more worse. Can these brave men and women save their town and the rest of America from turning into a toxic environment, or are they all doomed? Worst case scenario was a over-exaggerated drama that felt rushed, messy, and at times not fun to read, and a bit stressful. While the idea of a plane crashing into a nuclear power plant sounded interesting, however, Newman just throws the reader right into the action with no intro, along with no character development. She gives each character a short description and not much else. I felt the opening scene of the plane leaving the airport leading up to the event, along with introducing the characters, then get to the action, would have been a better beginning for this novel. While I understand the difficult situation these characters are going through, however, they spend most of the time arguing and swearing at each other, which got annoying reading these scenes, along with some dialogue. It was like most of these characters just hated each other for no reason, starting stupid arguments over the dumbest things or swearing at each other. Not only that, but a few of the characters made some of the worst choices throughout this novel. One of them had me shaking my head in disbelief when a teacher decides to tag along with two other students and their granddad to drive over to the center of the disaster zone rather than flee the town, all because he claims the highway would be blocked up with traffic, which also causes the main character's son to run away, making it even more worse. Why the hell would you go to a nuclear plant that has a plane crash into it that's leaking toxic radiation, then fleeing the town? Not only are you putting yourself at risk, but others as well. The scene, I felt, didn't need to be part of the story, as it just added unwanted drama to it. Another scene I felt that was over-exaggerated was the subplot of a fire crew trying to rescue this boy who's trapped in a crushed-up minivan as they struggle to get the kid out of the van, which leads to it hanging off a bridge and falls over and into the bottom of the river, which somehow no water leaks inside and takes forever to get this kid and a firefighter out. This scene could have been done a lot better. None of the characters were likable and didn't really have any personality to them, just plain generic people with nothing to like about them or give me a reason to care for any of them. Steve, I felt, was just an angry father who's annoyed with his son, Matt, for getting into trouble and reveals he's been upset with his father all because he didn't fix his fishing rod. And towards the end, makes a bad choice which costs him badly, all because he's against the idea of allowing one of his men to risk their lives to save the town, feeling that's his duty. I just felt Steve was throwing himself into the fire with no reason than to be selfish. Even was just plain and boring. He spends most of the time yelling at people. Josh was pretty much the same thing as Ethan. These two just fought with each other, and there's no backstory on why these two characters dislike each other. The rest of the cast I didn't care for. I really wish Newman put more thought and development into the characters to flesh them out, make them more likable. The pacing I felt was too fast at times, and like I said before, a intro building up this action would have been better than just throwing us right into on page 1. I was also annoyed how many times Newman brings up one tragic event over and over again to the point where I was getting tired of reading it. And this leads President Johnson to ground every flight, believing it could have been a terrorist act. But even after it's proven not to be, he still keeps all the flights grounded despite the fact that the rest of the states are miles away from where this disaster is taking place. Does 9/11 have to be brought up every damn time? Towards the end of the novel, it became even more rushed and sloppy at times, as I felt Newman was just quickly wrapping up this novel, as it could have been a lot better. I felt the idea was good, just not well executed and no character development. I am hoping with Newman's next novel, she'll change it up a bit and improve her writing. Overall, I don't recommend Worst Case Scenario. Not a good disaster thriller, as there are better novels over this one. Alright, that's for the review today. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I was really disappointed with this novel. I was really looking forward to reading this book, as I really enjoyed Drowning, Newman's second novel. However, her third novel I did not like at all. I'll just get with what I really dislike with this novel. It just throws you right into the action on page 1, and it just felt really rushed. And I was hoping that the beginning would kind of start differently, like maybe have like an opening part of like introducing this plane that's wherever it's going, and then what causes the problem, and then it leads to its inevitable crash, and then you follow these other characters in the book that are trying to save their town from being destroyed by this nuclear disaster that's happening, or just try to prevent it from spreading anywhere else. And I had a really different idea what this book was going to be like. I thought it was going to be it was going to be like those 70s disaster thriller movies, like Poseidon Adventure, Tower Inferno, like those films. Like in those films, we're introduced to all these characters, and as the film progresses, it develops more of the characters. So we get to know them, learn about their traits, personalities, and stuff, and if there's any problems they're going through, and then it leads right up to the major event of the story, and then we follow these characters trying to survive. That's what I thought Worst Case Scenario was going to be like. I thought it was going to start off like that. No. Newman just goes straight to the point on page 1, and I just felt that a opening scene would have been a lot better. And as I said, There's no likable characters in this book. No likable characters. Oh, I wouldn't mind a little backstory on the captain who has a heart attack. Like, I felt, again, she could have had, like, an opening scene of the crew getting ready for their flight and everything, and then one of the characters could bring up a issue that the captain's having, and he assures them, oh, no, I'm fine. And then, of course, later on during the flight, things go horribly wrong. So I felt that's how the beginning could have been done, and as the plane is like flying and getting closer towards the town where the novel takes place at, we could have been introduced to the residents of Akita and get to know them better as well. That's how I felt the beginning should have went. And as soon as we get to know these characters, then go straight to the action with the disaster. That's how I felt the novel should have went. And as I said, there is no likable characters throughout this book. There's no one that I cared for. I felt that Newman was just giving like very short, brief descriptions of these characters, and I felt she could have done a lot more with them. Steve, I felt, was just this bitter, angry father who has like a grudge against life after losing his wife Kara, which is never explained what caused her death. And I was like, again, you could explain that, like what happened to his wife. Did she get killed in an accident or something? Nope, it's never revealed what caused her death. And he's bitter towards his son Matt, who seems to be getting a lot of trouble. And then later on in the book, it's revealed his son's angry at him because he didn't fix his damn fishing rod. I thought, you've been angry with your father all because he didn't fix your fishing rod? Really? I felt that was just really lame. And then we're just the other characters. Ethan is just this, again, just this plain character who just yells and argues a lot with his workers and stuff. And then when Jess is brought in to help assist him, these two just spend most of the time just basically yelling at each other to the point where I feel like these two are going to get into a physical fight. But it's just basically they just yell at each other, and it's like, what is with these characters? Why do these two characters hate each other so much? What's the backstory? Again, the novel doesn't explain what it is, why these two characters hate each other so much. And it's like, I am not kidding, they spend most of the time in this book yelling and arguing with each other. That's all they do. They rarely work together. They're always fighting one another, and it just really got annoying reading their scenes of dialogue of just them arguing with each other. It was like really annoying. And then there's another part where what was it? Oh yeah. Then there's another part in the book where Ethan comes up with a plan to prevent the nuclear rods from releasing their toxic fumes that will kill anyone that comes in contact with them. He comes up with this idea: okay, we'll just weld the pool shut. That way they can't release them. However, they need to get this they need someone who has experience with underwater welding, and they need the gear for it. The problem is they can't. I felt this was weird. They can't get the gear they need because apparently they don't have the time forever. I'm thinking they established contact with President Johnson. They can just tell him we need this. Send a team over, and they could have done that, but they acted like, oh no, we don't have the time to get the gear we need, or someone flown in. It will take too long. This and that, and then one person says, oh, I know, this one guy in town, he has the gear. However, he's got a grudge against us. And I really did not like this. I felt this is just really lame. You could have had a scene where a team is sent in to help them. She could have went that route. Nope, she didn't. So then these two characters, they drive over to the guy's barn, and when they show up, he's got a rifle and he's not happy they're there. And then this is another scene I really hate where all these characters do when they interact with each other, all they're saying is fuck you and fuck that and this and that, and it's like it really got annoying just seeing every character just saying the F word until finally the one resolves the situation and they finally get what they need to get. It's like, again, why are these characters fighting each other? Like, yes, I understand that these characters are dealing with a very high-risk situation, and the town and the rest of the United States is in complete danger because of this nuclear threat. But you don't have to be fighting with each other. This really just got annoying to the point where I felt like I was starting to read like a drama where it's just characters just argue with each other, and it's really gets on my nerves when characters just spend most of the time fighting with each other. It's really annoying. So then, after they get the thing they need, they drive all the way back to the plant, and then when Ethan's trying to get someone to go in with RJ to help with them, Steve is completely against this because he doesn't like the idea of sacrificing one of his men and decides to throw himself into the fire for no reason other than to be selfish. Like, he's not really doing it to save the town. I felt he was like being like a kind of a self arrogant prick throughout the whole book, and he decides, I'm going to do it because it's my duty, and I'm against the idea of sacrificing my men. Well, of course, when him and RJ are in the middle of welding the pool, the middle of doing this, something goes wrong, and then later it's revealed that Steve is now poisoned with radiation, and he doesn't have long to live. I thought, way to go! Now your son is going to have no mother now, and now have no father. Like, did you seriously think this one through? You're gonna seriously risk your life just to do this when your son needs someone to look after him? Like, I just felt that Steve just basically just did not think this through. He was just being arrogant and decided to throw himself into the fire, not realizing the consequence that would be involved in it, and it kind of screws up his relationship with his son even more. I thought, what the hell were you thinking? Let someone else do it. And he just so happens to have like underwater welding skills all of a sudden. Like, where did this come from? You're a firefighter. Where'd you get this from? And he also knows how to scuba dive, apparently, which was just like, it was like, at one point I thought, wait, how did you have this? You're a firefighter. You didn't say anything you had any scuba experience. So I just really felt like it was just really annoying what this character does. He has nothing likable. And then we're introduced to, his son Matt, who's just this like angry kid who's mad at his father because he won't fix his damn fishing rod. It's like, seriously, like, you're bitter over your father about your damn fishing rod not being fixed and something else more important? I just felt really stupid. Oh, and speaking of really dumb characters, then this one scene I felt was just the most dumbest thing I've ever read in a book, and I literally was shaking my head in disbelief and thought, what the actual fuck are you thinking? So there's a part where Matt is about to be put on a bus with the other students to evacuate out of the town. Then one of the parents shows up to get their daughter and tries convincing the teacher to come with him to the power plant, claiming it will be safer there because the highways are going to be all backed up with traffic and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, are you out of your goddamn mind? You want to risk your life, 2 children, and a teacher's life where the disaster zone is happening, where toxic radiation is leaking, and put everyone's lives in jeopardy, rather than leaving the town. This part was just so stupid, and then this leads to another fight with Matt calling his teacher a bitch, where I thought, oh, where'd you learn that word, young man? It was just the stupidest scene I've ever read, and I think to myself, no way in hell would I allow that. If I was the teacher, I would say, no, you're not taking these kids to the plant. I would literally grab them and take them with me, and hell, I wouldn't even fight the guy if I have to. But it was just the stupidest, dumbest part in the whole book, and I felt this was just over-exaggerated to add more drama to the novel, which was unnecessary. I thought, what the hell are you thinking? Like, take the kids on the bus and get out of the town. Do the right thing. Don't. Oh yeah, let's just drive to the nuclear power plant when the whole disaster is happening. We'll be totally safe there. We won't get harmed by the radiation. I was like, oh, you fucking idiot. And then throughout the novel, there's a subplot of Steve's other fire crew who's trying to rescue this boy after his family. In one of the most gruesome scenes in the book, where this family is brutally killed in this like horrific car accident, and the one thing I felt that with this one part, I wish I would explain, was like, what highway is this scene taking place at? Because it's never specified which highway it is. And I'm thinking there has to be more than one highway that this town's connected to. But anyway, so this fire crew finds the only survivor, Connor, who's like badly injured, who needs medical help. And when they request backup, Steve, of course, denies the request and tells them to get over to the plant where he needs more help. They they're in the process of telling him they got a survivor, but Steve, being ignorant, just yells at them to get over the plant at once, and they decide to hell with his orders. We're gonna stay here and help this boy, which I thought, okay, that's the correct thing to do. But I just felt like the characters don't speak up. They just kind of remain silent. I wish one of them would say, "We got a boy, damn it! We got a boy that needs help now." So I just wish one of these fire characters would speak up. So then comes this really tedious process of them trying to get this boy out of the minivan, and for whatever reason they can't just smash a window out and just reach in and get the boy out. It's not well explained why they have such a difficult time getting him out. So first they try to get him to open the door, and when he finally gets out, no, first they try to get him out of his seat, which he finally does. Then they try to open the door, and it won't open. Then the minivan leans halfway across the bridge, and one of the firefighters is able to get inside the van, but not pull the kid out. And then the minivan falls off the bridge, lands in the river, and then sinks to the bottom. And somehow this thing has no water leaking in it. And I'm like, how is this possible? Is the minivan like sinking like halfway out the water like this, or is it fully underwater? It's not well explained, and it's even more frustrating when they finally do get the help they need, and they still struggle to get this damn kid out. I thought, this should not be this hard. Like, why couldn't they just break a window, reach in, get the kid out? It shouldn't be this damn hard. I felt that Newman just stretched this scene way too long and over-exaggerated it, and I just really was annoyed just reading these scenes of this fire crew trying to get this kid out, and they struggle throughout the entire time throughout the novel. It's like, do you people know what the hell to do here? It shouldn't be this hard. Like, come on. And then throughout the novel, there's times where characters bring up disasters from the past that happened, such as the Chernobyl disaster, and then another one was the nuclear plant disaster in Japan back in 2011 when they had that tsunami. However, throughout the book, characters keep bringing up this one tragic event over and over again, and it just got annoying. I felt it was forcibly being applied to the plot, and I felt it didn't need to be part of the plot. Which is, of course, the events of 9/11. And people keep bringing this up all because a plane crashed into the nuclear power plant, and it's for a completely different reason than the event that happened. And it's like, what does this have to do with what's going on in the book? What does this seriously have to do with it? This is about a plane that crashed into a nuclear power plant because the captain had a heart attack, not because of terrorism. And it's like, do they have to bring this event every time a plane crashes in a building? Every damn time. It's like every character brings this up, and it just got annoying reading this. And it's just like, I think myself, focus on the plot of the book, not events that happened in the past. Like, if it doesn't have anything to do with the story, then don't bring it up. And then I also felt what the President Donson character does. He decides to ground all flights because he thinks this could be a terrorist act. I thought, is this really what they do? It's like every time a plane crashes, they instantly go, terrorism is the cause. Like, okay, you're jumping the gun there. You gotta look at the facts first before you make that call. You can't just jump the gun and say, oh, this was caused by terrorism. Even after it's proven not to be terrorism, he still grounds all the flights. But you don't have to ground all the flights. You can still have, planes flying in other states, just not around the area where the disaster took place. You could have just done that. I also had another thought that I was thinking myself when I introduced the Donson character. He says he's never experienced this type of event before, so I was wondering if it was going to be a subplot where basically he starts to interfere with the main characters trying to save their town, and this leads tension between the residents trying to stop the nuclear disaster from spreading, and he's just making the situation worse. I thought that's how the book was going to play out, but instead, he's kind of like a character in the background. He only appears a couple times, and that's it. I was thinking he could have had the character done more here. And then, of course, towards the end of the book is where I felt the author is now rushing towards the end. She's just trying to wrap the book up, and after they think that the first problem is solved, then they have another problem, and again, it just felt rushed. I felt this book could have been so much better. I was really disappointed. Like, I really enjoyed the author's second novel, Drowning, and I was hoping this third book would be really good, but it was sadly not. So I'm hoping that when T.G. Newman comes out with her next book, she will improve as a writer, make some improvements to her writing style, structure, and have better developed characters. Have like a opening intro scene to start a story off before getting to the action. I'm just hoping that when her next book comes out, it'll be a lot better than this one, and I'm hoping when I go to read her first novel, Fallen, it'll be a good thriller too. Alright, that's for the review today. Hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to October Library, the YouTube channel where I post book reviews, book hauls, or official content. Until then, I'll catch you later.